It is Uncle Bob, and welcome to the channel. Welcome back, guys. Thanks for hanging out with me. We are back to drunkenly replay Advance Wars for the Game Boy Advance. Today we are here for Field Mission Training 7, Copter Tactics. So yeah, we are here to enjoy our Saturday. I've got the last dram of my cheap barn-stable level whiskey here. Just, you know, the cheapos of the cheapos. Not actually the cheapest Scotch whiskey you could get, because I'm not gonna lie. When I saw that, like, listen, this is Dewar's White Label. Like, this is like the most popular Scotch in America, but it's still like $20 a bottle before tax. Like $22 afterwards. And I've seen even cheaper Scotch whiskey. Now there might be one that's good out of those, but listen, I'm about to be 35 in a couple of months. I was 21. It's weird to think that that was 14 years ago, but that was a pretty long time ago. If I see your booze in a plastic bottle, I'm not buying it. That's a level of bottom shelf that I'm not even going to bother entertaining. So I'm not going to. But yeah, just finishing off this last dram of Dewar's White Label. And I think I'm going to start saving up to buy some fancier bottles of alcohol. I want to use my plasma money for that, because I have not spent my own money on alcohol in like months, possibly a year. I just don't. The idea of spending money that I like work in a warehouse, using that money for some of my vices, not a fan of that. Not a fan of that at all. So I have tried now strictly using my plasma money for any alcohol and any Mary J. Juanas that I consume. Because I don't want to be using business money for pleasure. I want to let my side money go to the pleasure. But yeah, we're just finishing this off because after this week, I needed a drink. Or several. I drink like 10 half shots over like the course of like 3 hours. So I'm not getting swifted out here. But yeah, I think I'm gonna be saving up for something a little more classy. Oh, Saturday. It's weird to think that the last time I live streamed this, in 2 days, my whole week was just gonna get rocked, and I had no way of knowing. So, I mean, not that anybody who's watching this is super interested, but, I like to talk for 15 minutes before I play. Just kind of chill, schmooze. But, yeah, it's going to get to be kind of a bummer right now because I just want to talk about it. Yeah, my son had a seizure on Monday. And, it wasn't the first one that he's had. The last one he had was maybe like 4 months ago. And it was at like 3 o'clock in the morning, and was on a day that I didn't have work. So, she was with the boy. I was calling the paramedics and dealing with, emergency officials. Like, everyone had like a job. Nobody like, it wasn't like, you get the boy, I'll call the paramedics. Like, it wasn't like that, but just when you have two people, you can delineate tasks and everything is not fine, but everything goes a lot easier on the mind when you only have one task to focus on. But on Monday, it was just me because my girl went to go donate plasma. And where she goes is like almost an hour away from the house. And she had just gotten there. And yeah, it was like trying to call the paramedics while I'm trying to like haul my son's body while he's having a seizure out of the bathtub. Bro, that is an experience that, like, to hold your child while they're having a fucking seizure, like, that's not even the worst thing that a child could be going through, like, being realistic. And that was, especially when, like, you don't have your partner around. Like, my girl was out somewhere else, and it's like, I'm over here, like, trying to, like, worry about him, grab him, have 911 on the phone. I'm trying to make sure he's okay. And I mean, luckily, like, it's a seizure, so like just make sure that, he's breathing and that there's somewhere that they're not going to smack their head on something or anything like that. But yeah, cuz my son was complaining that he just wasn't feeling very good. So, I asked him if he wanted to go in the shower. He said, "Yeah." Because, like what I do, I don't know if this is the technically correct thing, medically speaking, to be doing. But at least for me, when I'm not feeling good, I will go sit in the shower. I'll just, even as a fucking grown ass adult, I will just turn on the hot water. I will sit in almost like the fetal position on the bathtub floor and just let the hot water run over me. I'll probably sweat out a little bit of whatever is going through me. And even if it's only temporary relief, I'll take temporary relief. I'll take that every time. One second. All right, my bad. My girl was just she's going for a little walksy. Probably she's doing her own little mental unwinding after the week. But no, I'll sit on the floor and just let the hot water run over me, try to sweat it out, and even if it's only temporary relief that a hot shower will give me while I'm sick, I'll take 2 hours of relief. I can take another shower in 2 hours. But my son was complaining that he just wasn't feeling very good, so I put him in the shower, set him up. He walked himself upstairs. It's not like I had to carry him up there. He walked himself up, got himself undressed, got in the shower, and then I went downstairs to go check on what his sister, because it's morning time, so I'm seeing, what she wants for breakfast and all this. And as I get her breakfast set up, I go back upstairs to go check on my son and make sure he's doing okay. And he's sitting on the bathtub floor, like staring up at the ceiling with like his hands locked on the with his hands locked on the like his elbows locked with his hands on the floor. And he's just sitting on the bathtub floor and his eyes are like staring up in the back corner. Like, just not his eyes weren't rolling in the back of his head, but he was like looking up in the corner. And it's weird because, I have friends, and my ex-girlfriend, I know people who've been epileptic. And usually like, I'm used to the classic seizures, like the thing that you're used to seeing. And I know that's not the only kind of seizure, but like for his, a lot of like, while I'm trying to get his attention and like talk to him while he's in the bathroom, you know, he's like scratching his chest, scratching his foot, scratching his nose. So he's doing things, like his body is reacting. I'm asking him if he can hold my hand, and he's holding my hand. So like his body's reacting in certain ways, but he's not. So, that happens, and I'm dealing with the paramedics, and yeah, they finally got over there. I mean, not finally, they got over there really quickly, all things considering. And yeah, I had to leave my daughter with their older sibling, and I had to just go with my son to the hospital. And then he stayed overnight. They shipped him off to downtown Chicago to the Children's Hospital because his regular doctor is a part of the neurology unit at um, the Children's Hospital in downtown Chicago. So they figure, like, all right, well, the hospital he's at doesn't have a pediatric unit. His doctor obviously has a pediatric unit. Go send him there. And luckily, by the time they sent him off, he was already back to his chatty self and was already back to normal. So, I don't think we're any closer, unfortunately, to knowing what caused it. But I think he should be all right. He should be all right in the end. Um, it was definitely a very scary day. It was definitely very nerve-wracking. And the next couple of days, because, my mind is always going to go to the worst case scenarios of the things that they could find while doing testing. So that was wild and crazy. And I really hope I never have to deal with that again. Which, knowing that he's had 3 seizures in the last like 2 years, it's probably not going to be the last time, but one can hope. Actually, it was funny because the thing that I'm not sure if it's like because he's autistic, but I imagine it is, where his scalp and his sense of touch on his head is very sensitive, more sensitive than anybody I think I've ever seen. That doesn't have anything like actually wrong with their skin or something. And at the time, they didn't know whether they were going to transfer him or not to the hospital at downtown. So they were saying like, oh, if he stays asleep too long and he doesn't, wake up, we're going to have to send him to the pediatric unit just because, he had already been awake for a little bit, but then he conked right back out. So I had the brilliant idea, because my son's kryptonite, truly, his true kryptonite, is getting his hair brushed. He fucking hates getting his hair brushed. So, jokingly, I was at the hospital with my son. Mom got there. She sat with him, and then I went back home to get our daughter, and then bring her over to the hospital so that way she could see her brother, because, that's her best friend. She was nonstop while I was gone, apparently, asking about seeing him. So I had the idea, like, oh, you know what? We'll bring a hairbrush. We'll see if that'll wake him up. Sure enough, his mom started brushing his hair. That kid shot up immediately and started yelling, like, don't brush my hair. So it was good to see that with like, it was almost like that old like Dragon Ball thing where Goku gets knocked out and somebody waves a piece of meat in front of him and he like wakes up and is like, food. Like, that's how my son was. Just the moment someone started brushing his hair, he shot right up and was like, no, don't brush my hair. So I was like, well, it's good to see you're awake, kid. And yeah, by the time they had transferred him to downtown Chicago to the Children's Hospital, he was already up and yakety yakking all over the place. So I knew he was going to be fine. It sucked that he had to spend 2 days in the hospital, even though they had like a kids center there because it's a children's hospital. So he still found ways to entertain himself there. But yeah, your kid having a seizure in your arms, that is definitely a 0 out of 10. Do not recommend. That shit fucking sucks. Because, I'm not a very big guy. I'm only 5'7". But, I work at UPS, and, even though I'm losing weight, I'm still around 225 pounds. Even if I were to get fully fit and in shape, I think the lowest I could ever be is like 195. Like, at the lowest I could go, I'm always going to be a very heavy person. I'm, not to toot my own horn, I'm a very strong person. I am stronger than I look like I am, especially for my size. But I mean, that comes with doing martial arts for nearly 20 years and then working manual labor jobs, now in my 30s. I got a heavy dose of what's called man strength. And there's a lot of things you can fight against. And your kid having a seizure is not one of them. Like, the only thing, you could be useful for is pulling them out of the bathtub, in my situation. Like, everything else, it sucks that your best thing to do is when the paramedics get there, for real, is just to stand out of their way. Like, that's a hard thing as a parent, when the best thing you can do is fuck off. That's a hard one. But I mean, like, having two kids, that's a lesson we try to teach them. Like, listen, I know you're trying to help right now, but you helping me right now is you not being here. Go play in your room. Just, if you want to help me, I know you want to help. You want to help me clean. That's nice. That's sweet. Listen, right now, if you want to help, fuck off. Obviously, you don't say it to your child like that, but it's the message you're getting across. Like, listen, sometimes your help is getting out of the way. And, I'm smart enough to know that when it comes to paramedics, like, listen, that's your job. Get out of their way. You give them all the information they need, and then you fuck off. Don't be one of those people that has to be like hovering over these guys. Like, these guys are professionals. They work. They do this every single day. Fuck off. You don't need to be in the way. You're trying to help is not helping. But yeah, it was a long week. So I am glad to now be here playing some video games. But it is time for Copter Tactics. What time is it? I was supposed to have finished this a little bit ago. Last of the whiskey. All right, guys, let's get it started. That's enough venting. All right, it's time to... Don't worry, all that you hear is completely legal. Woo! In the state of Illinois. Whoop. All right, had a couple more coughs I need to get out of there. All right, it's time to introduce air units. It appears that we have a problem. Orange Star has schnid a snag in its mid-tank development program. On the other hand, Blue Moon seems to have more than enough tanks. I think it's safe to assume that they have mass production capabilities. I pulled some strings and had some B copters and T copters sent down from the front lines, but that doesn't give you all that much more firepower. Nevertheless, let's make good use of them. I'll give you more details once we reach the staging area. Let's move out. Copter Tactics. Okay. Olaf is one shrewd guy. Look at the units he's deployed. He's always one step ahead of us. I didn't think he'd have any air units. I guess I underestimated him again. But as I suspected, he has deployed a number of medium tanks. A frontal attack would be reckless. As always, we need to defeat all enemy units or capture their HQ. But looking at all of Olaf's units, I think we have only one true option. We must capture the enemy HQ. First, you can select this infantry unit. The enemy HQ is right below you, but infantry units can't cross seas. It might be possible to march there, but with all those enemies, this is where transport copters come in handy. Do you remember APCs? Like APCs, transport copters can carry infantry and mech units. But also like APCs, they have no weapons and cannot fire. Okay, go ahead and load a unit onto your transport copter. Good, you loaded your troops. Now select the transport copter. Now look where it can move. That's right, transport copters can move overseas. Duh. Plus, the movement cost is the same over all terrain types. Okay, let's move it down here. Now drop the infantry. This is the only place you can drop troops now. Do you know why? Infantry can't move on the ocean. Thanks. You can only drop infantry on terrain they can move across. Don't forget that. You should check to see on which terrain you can drop infantry. Remember how to check terrain, right? Move the cursor onto the terrain and press the R button to check it. Give it a try. Okay, now let's test the battlecopter's capabilities. Select it. The battlecopter is an air unit just like the transport copter, which means terrain doesn't affect its movement range. Air units aren't affected by terrain bonuses either, which makes sense since they're always flying. As far as attack power, well, you should check it out for yourself. This tank is in the perfect spot. Test your battlecopter. Fire. Good amount on the tiny tanks. Aren't they powerful? Battlecopters are even effective versus tanks. Plus, with their superior movement capabilities, they're easy to deploy. Now, let me tell you a little more about your new copter units. As you know, they're both air units. All the other units you've used up to this point have been ground units. Since air units are always flying, they use fuel every day. The battle and transport copters use 2 fuel units per day. Don't worry about remembering that exact number, though. Just keep that in mind, that they burn fuel every day. Now you know all you need to know about these new units, right? I'm leaving the rest up to you. Do you want some strategic advice? Sure. Pay careful attention to the enemy battlecopters and medium tanks. All we have that can go toe-to-toe with them are our battlecopters. So play it safe, keep them out of attack range until necessary. Other than that, don't forget to capture the enemy HQ tomorrow. I'm sure Olaf hasn't considered the possibility that it could be captured early on. Good luck. That might have been the wrong move, but you know what? We're going to find out. Ha ha ha. I see Nell hasn't deployed any medium tanks. Go on, my troops. This time nothing can stand in the way of our victory. Oh, there is quite a lot that can do that. That's brutal. That fucking sucks, actually. That really fucking sucks, actually. This doesn't. I expected this. This is just fine. Yeah, that was not what I was expecting. I was not expecting the medium tank to off himself. Okay, so they want you to make sure you're capturing this fucking shit. Jesus. Well, this is going to be a pure just survive a turn map. Fuck it, do damage on these guys. Weaken those offensive capabilities. I feel like there's not much in the way of copter tactics in this whole fight. He did his job. Oh, sorry, I had to blow my nose. Yep, you may have been stronger than me, but you were not nearly fast enough. I just want to do this for the pure joy of it. I could capture your base right now, but why don't I just whittle down a couple of your units here while I can. There we go. Extra nice. All right, and cap it up. I kind of wondered about this before, but Olaf typically makes terrible use of his units. Doesn't matter how good your units are if you don't know how to use them. Anyway, let me tell you a little more about those new air units. Even if you land them on allied cities and HQs, they won't receive HP or be supplied with fuel or ammunition. You haven't seen any yet, but you can only resupply air units at airports. If they run low on fuel or ammo, you can restock them with an APC, just like land units. Now keep up the good work. What in the... My HQ has been stormed. Nell, you troublesome little bitch. You saw that you couldn't survive a frontal assault, and so you pull this out of your hat. This isn't over yet. Yeah. Well, I'm not going to go up against you while you're stacked like that. Kind of wonder if you can actually do that without losing anyone. Maybe I'll try that in the next couple of days, but wow, that was a nice short one, which is fine because, you know, these are all getting a little bit longer, and soon we're going to be on to the actual gameplay. Whereas, you know, we're still doing these tutorials. I am pretty happy with the way they're turning out. I'm not getting a whole bunch of drops out of my... I'm not getting a whole lot of drops out of my internet signal like I was before when I had to abandon the previous project and move on to this one. But, you know, I'm glad it's turned out the way that it has. I'm glad that I have my little spot that I can do this in. I'm not losing connection, and it doesn't seem to be affected by length, even though today was one of the shorter ones that I'll have. But, you know, that's going to happen. Even when the actual game hits, you know, I looked at some of my old videos, and a lot of those maps are like 20, 30 minutes long. So there's a couple that are longer, but for the most part, they're all pretty short. And that's even with me having the animations turned on, because I will not ever turn those animations off. That is never happening. Oh, God, I'm tired. All that stuff I talked about earlier, it is made for a... You know, and it kind of sucks because this upcoming week, like, I was supposed to have started today because I work Tuesday through Saturday. Today is supposed to start my vacation week. I'm supposed to be on vacation this week. Now, I still wanted to get, like, over the course of 5 days, even on vacation, I wanted to get like 10 hours of work. Because we get paid vacation and we get paid like 2 weeks before. But, when things like your kid having a seizure can happen, unless you're living well off, I can get that money early. It's not gonna survive. It just, some of it'll manage to get put away, but life just still comes at you so quickly. And this week I ended up missing, because that happened on Monday. Tuesday and Wednesday, there's no one to watch my daughter. So I had to take off for those days so I could be home. I made it to work Thursday, and then Friday, because Thursday I was running on like 2 hours of sleep. Because my son didn't get, we had basically heard after the first day, so this would have been Tuesday, that they wanted to do an MRI, but because of scheduling, they had no idea when they were going to get him in. So they had no clue or no idea. So, but they were saying that they would be able to discharge him right after that. So I was like, okay, cool. So he didn't get into the MRI machine until like 5 o'clock, which means, yeah, he didn't start like waking up until, he didn't get out until about 7. And by the time he got discharged, it was just past 10 o'clock at night. So by the time we got home and I'm trying to rest, and I'm running on like 2 hours of sleep by the time I get to work. And Friday, I just straight up zonked through my alarm. I cleared right through that bitch. It could not stop me. Luckily, I think with it being a medical emergency, my boss was really cool about it. So it was all good, but yeah, I told him, I was like, well, I only wanted 10 hours, during my vacation week, but I ended up getting only 10 hours this week. So I was like, I guess I'm not really going to enjoy my vacation next week. I'm going to be trying to work now. The thing is it's still my vacation week. So unfortunately, when it comes time to cut people, if you're on vacation and you're working, doesn't matter how much seniority you got, you're the first to go. You already technically got paid for that week. You got to go first, which is fair. Like, that's the way the cookie crumbles. So, yeah, it's kind of sketchy. I don't know how much money I'm going to be able to make next week, but even still, I was just like, I'm not going to be able to take my vacation. Like, I know it, I am, and I can get cut. I'll have to get cut first. Like, that's just a risk I take, but I got to make money because, even if nothing would have happened, I still can't have a week where $0 go into my account. It can't. It can be just 10 hours, which for me, I get paid like $23 an hour. So for me, that's before taxes, that's $230. 23 times 10, nice and easy. So, like, I don't need that much, but I can't have a week of 0. That's not good. I can't do that. But, I guess I ended up basically taking an early vacation whether I wanted to or not this week, so I gotta now see what I can do to make up for it next week. Oh god, we just got a shitload of rain out here, and now my nose is killing me. It's all stuffed up. I'm gonna take some Zyrtec the moment I get in the house. Oh. But yeah, it was a long week. I'm glad that everything's fine. I'm glad my son's just back to living his best life. Now we have anti-seizure medication for him to take. So, and bro, this kid's 8. He turns 9 on Friday next week, the 22nd. I know it's the 22nd, but I think that's Friday. Um, so he's still 8. He can take like just 2 medications, just take the pills, pop them in his mouth, and just drink and take them both. And I'm just like, I have a hard time doing that. And he just fucking gulp. I was like, God damn. Especially because, you know, his, most of his medication for his ADHD are pretty small. But these anti-seizure meds, especially for being a kid, are some fucking horse pills. But yeah, hopefully that stuff works. You know, I warned him because, you know, I was like, I don't know what this medicine is, but it's like, you know, it's supposed to prevent seizures from happening, but I'm sure that, you know, one can always happen. It can still be a thing, I'm sure. And it's got to be weird for him because, you know, I asked him, I was like, so do you remember going into the shower? Yeah. Do you remember getting in the shower? Yeah. So do you remember anything else? Or do you just remember waking up in the hospital? And he was like, I just remember waking up. And it's like, damn, bro, as far as he knew, he was sitting on the bathtub floor, and next thing he knows, he's just waking up in the hospital. I mean, I guess my car accident was like a slight amount of that, but I more just like blacked out very briefly. Because for me, it wasn't a long time, but I got hit by a car when I was a freshman in high school. The intersection behind my house was like a 3-way intersection, you know, a T shape. And I was going up, you know, the long part of the T, the vertical part. If you're looking at the street, if you're looking from the top down, I'm on the left-hand side going up to the horizontal part of the T. And my bus stop was across the street and then a little to the left, where there was another little court. And that's where my bus stop would be. And I remember, because this is back before iPads were really big. Or iPods. iPads weren't even a thing. What am I talking about? iPods. This was before, like, iPods and MP3 players. Like, they existed, but they weren't, like, big. They were something that was, like, still... Well, I guess by the time I was a freshman in high school, I guess they were starting to pick up steam. iPods were probably becoming a lot more widespread at that point. I would get one soon after, but I didn't have one yet. I still had a Walkman, you know, where I put my CD in a Walkman, and that CD was all I had for all day at school. Which, you know, I guess is basically how I listen to music now, where I'll just loop an album all day. So I guess that really hasn't changed. But I remember putting my backpack down, looking down, seeing if the bus was coming. It was not. And then I remember checking my backpack, seeing if I still had my Walkman. And I did. And then I put it back in my backpack, zipped it up. And then as I turned to cross the street, I didn't realize that my shoelace was loose. Shoelace was loose. All right, there we go. And I was already stepping on it. So when I turned to like cross the street, I was stepping on my shoelace and I stumbled into the street. And I looked and there was just a car. And all I remember is hearing a ringing in my ear, and then I'm on the side of the road, like just laying down with blood dripping down into the fucking sewers. Which is pretty metal sounding. Which I have learned since that when your head bleeds, because it's protecting your brain, if you get a nasty cut on your head, it will bleed and look way worse than what it actually is, which is obviously just your body trying to defend your brain. Um, but yeah, all I remember is like laying there. So I do know smaller versions of what that's like, where like something happens and all of a sudden you're just like, oh, what is going on? Actually, a little bit more, a better example of that for me would be, God, I don't even remember if it was my first or second surgery now. I actually think it was my second one. Because after that leg surgery to correct the broken leg that I had from getting hit by a car, I, my second surgery was because my bone ended up being like bowed out 8 inches to the side. Because I guess if you're standing like with your feet hips width apart, regular, if you put your fingers on the like that hip bone in like the front of your thigh that kind of sticks out, if you're standing straight, it should be a straight line from that ball joint to the middle of your kneecap. And my right knee was like 6 inches off to the outside. So my leg had a heavy bow to it. And my second surgery, they went to break open my leg and put a bone graft in there, put a piece of bone in the opening, straighten the bone out, and then stitch it back up. And yeah, I remember them asking me, they were like, do you want to use a cadaver bone? And I was, I'm like 16, 17. I'm like, what's that? They're like, a dead guy's bone. And I was like, ugh. I was like, or? And they're like, or we can make an incision in your hip and we can actually take some of the bone out of your hip. And I was like, use his. Like, whoever they are, they clearly don't need it anymore. I don't need bone being taken out of my hip on top of everything else going on. I was like, no, thank you. Just use theirs. It's free. Not free, You know what I mean. But, yeah, I remember going in for that second surgery, back to the actual topic. And I remember going through a set of doors on my way to the surgery room, and I remember the floors being like a minty green color, and I remember going through a hallway, but it's this weird sensation that I have like memories of having memories, if you get what I mean. Like, I know that I have these memories of going through there, but I don't remember it anymore. Like, it's the weirdest sensation in the world, because like I feel like I remember what I think happened, but I don't remember it. And it's a very weird thing. I feel like actually now that I'm older, I actually remember, I feel like more of it, but I also don't know is how much of that is just my brain, you know, what's the thing? Like, not speaking it into existence, but like if I think that a thing happened, I can convince myself that it happened. Because the brain can convince itself of just about anything. Look at a Trump voter. Not to get political today. Um, but no, I know that your brain can fill in the gaps in a lot of things that it doesn't remember. So I don't know if I actually remember more now, or it's just telling myself that I have. But I do understand the weird sensation of, I mean, I guess I've been blackout drunk, so I guess I know what that is like in more than just a medical sense. But I'm just glad my son's okay, and I'm glad I have a little outlet like this to just kind of talk about shit and just unwind after a crazier week than I would have liked to have had. So I'm hoping the rest of my week, the next week, goes by so much better than this week did. I'm just hoping for a regular old, plain old week. I don't want no bullshit going on. I just want things to be chill. That's what I want. I just want things to be relaxed. But we will see if I get that in the end. So that is it for the day, guys. I will talk to y'all later. So take it easy. Peace. Next week, air assault. So yeah, be back next week around the same time. So yeah, till then, guys. Peace.